Hello and welcome back. Today we will be continuing our USA, aka Florida Man, waving the stick at the enemy's run, where we have just this massive conscript army and we get whatever we want, which included, of course, last episode, getting Great Britain as a subject. They are, of course, one of the great minor European powers, and we will be continuing along quite well. We have several people that we have no business subjugated in Austria, Prussia, and Great Britain, and so we will be moving towards annexing, at the very least, Great Britain. Once our infamy comes down a little, we will reduce autonomy on them, because we do want to kind of get all the Americas, but the larger project of the run is to get 500 million pops, which we're well on the way to doing. I don't think we'll get it this episode. There's a slight chance we'll get it this episode, but I think we'll probably be getting it next episode. Maybe try and get all the Americas too anyways, and so maybe we'll have to be a little bit more belligerent rather than being patient and trying to acquire all these. Most of the Americas we have gotten free in reverse sways. Like Ecuador, we did not subjugate them personally, we got a reverse sway for them, and, you know, kind of running up on the timeline a little bit, we maybe need to actually actively try and militaristically do some stuff. But this is the current state of affairs. Here's the market. And we are siphoning off pops from this market, and we are also getting a ton of pop growth and mass migrations, and so this is how we're going about improving the population. But let's get into it. So we have a little bit of the Mohicans type situation, where this is the absolute kind of last bit of colonization we have left to do, or the last two bits actually, this and then this, and there's a native uprising, so we decided to declare a war. Just to be clear, the reverse sways work much better as long as you're not declaring wars by yourself, so we are trying to avoid declaring wars and just be constantly not declaring a war and just waiting. That way we can reverse sway, and then the second we have a diplomatic play like this that we're locked into, the second we have something like this, then we will declare our play, and we've gone for reduced autonomy on Honduras because they didn't auto-accept it, and we do want to kind of move things along in the Americas, and so this is what we're going for. There's a slight chance, although it's really unlikely at this point, that they will call in the defense pact of Mexico, but I think Mexico just doesn't want the heat, or New Granada, again, think that they don't want the heat, and so I think we're just going to reduce their autonomy. They might not even back down, but with just war reparations as the other war goal, we'll probably actually have to fight this, so, but fairly straightforward. Just wanted to emphasize that we are spending a lot of time not declaring plays at this point, because you have to not be involved in a diplomatic play or war in order to do the full threatening yo-yo sway, which is something people have been asking questions about. As soon as we're involved in a war or a play, or there's any other play available to us, then we cannot swap sides back and forth in order to threaten, and so because we want to do this, we are waiting until a play pops up, and then we are declaring our wars. Unfortunately, our guy who has literary has also gotten the imposing trait, which kind of offsets the entire purpose of literary, giving extra infamy decay. This gives less infamy decay, and this is unfortunate for us, especially because he overall doesn't really give us that much authority. I think he's not very popular. Well, I guess he's liked, but this imposing trait, definitely not one we want to have. I'm not sure if it was always on him and we just like had blinders in terms of literary, but this is unfortunate because we are trying to decay stuff down so that we can reduce autonomy and do all these sorts of stuff while maintaining low infamy so that we can maintain the market as best we can. But maybe the time of the market is over, the time of the orc must come, and we should just, you know, swap to Council Republic, and then because this will stimulate our economy pretty substantively. I think if we're going to do this, we almost certainly want to get the Intelligentsia to have a leader, because they're the only big group other than the Industrialists who oppose it, and the Industrialists will kind of always oppose that swap, and so we will want to wait on a cooldown for inviting an agitator, because we currently can't invite an agitator until 07. I guess we just invited this guy. We just invited this boyo to try and fix our woes, but it's unfortunate. But we would want to look for someone who is intelligentsia that is also like communist or this sort of thing. Or I think nihilist might be neutral on making the swap between parliamentaries, so a nihilist would also work. Ideally one with a good trait, so we could go for a vanguardist as well, in case they became a ruler, but I think that, you know, it would be better to get a good ruler trait on trade unionists, because trade unionists will almost certainly be leading the Council Republic, and so, you know, she doesn't have a particularly good trait, and so we can instead look for a trade unionist, but in either case, this is a little bit moot. I suppose we could recruit generals to try and find this, but it just feels so bad exiling Teddy Roosevelt from America if we were to do that. So this kind of always happens in West Virginia, where they actually have a ton of pop problems. And we'll just take a look at kind of the mass migration as it stands right now, or as is occurring. We currently are using an edict in West Virginia, and we're going to keep it here. I think in theory, once you hit a mass migration, you're supposed to juggle around the edicts, but if we juggle around the edicts with this authority deficit, we'll just lose the ability to do that. So we can't do that now. But West Virginia often suffers as being part of the United States with relatively low amount of arable land. They will often suffer and actually lose pops, even though they have great resources. And what will end up happening is you'll only have enough pop to run the railways, and then this will mean your SOL won't be particularly high, which will negatively affect, your standard of living modifier for your flat modifier for being able to get pops here, and you kind of death spiral down in being able to pull pops here. So I think that putting down the edict so that these buildings can employ up, and then once these buildings employ up, then they can help carry the migration attraction. I think this is a useful thing. You might also notice a sort of death spiral that occurs when you have slavery, where a province or a state can become 100% slaves, and this is a bit of an interesting death spiral. It often happens in the South, but what happens is the African American pops or the slaves lower the SOL modifier for standard of living for the incoming pops. We don't have a good example of this because we banned slavery forever ago, but the slaves lower the standard of living, which decreases the migration attraction. And once the migration attraction is low enough to have an exodus, which we have with 135, which is a little bit nuts, but once it's low enough to have an exodus, then all the pops that can leave, aka not slaves, start leaving, and eventually you get a situation where you're left with nothing but slaves in a state, and when that happens, things can be a little bit rough. And so it's not too many places that are kind of like this, where you have like this weird death spiral where you can't employ stuff up, but we are trying to massage and look for these places in particular and put mass migrations down in order to be able to attract pops there. Northern Cape is another good example here. We also are running an edict here, which is why we have positive migration. We have teeming shore, and we have the greener grass plus greener grass. But the thing with them is, look, we have 127k pop. That is very, very, very little. And the problem is at this point, they're all employed in stuff like the railroads and the one university we have here. To be fair, we could probably delete down this uni, so that's probably okay. And this construction sector, a little gratuitous. But we do not even have enough pops to fully employ the gold mines, for example. And so this is another thing you can look for, is you can look for places that have gold mines, have gold mines, and are maybe not employing them up because there isn't enough migration attraction in the area. There's a secondary problem specifically with Antofagasta in that... Oh, wait, why is all the sulfur employed but the gold isn't? That's wild as hell, man. What? I mean, sulfur PM is really, really good, but the problem with Antofagasta, it's under 20 arable land, and so we can't actually pull mass migrations there, so we have to pull regular migration there. And even though the migration attraction is high enough to pull some pops, it's not high enough to pull really a substantive amount, and so we're having a little bit of a struggle in getting there. And so what we could do is we could put down an edict, especially if we didn't have a bunch of cultural communities already, because the edicts help you to gain cultural communities, and look to push something there. It would be really nice, for example, if we could seed something like Han there, but just about every place that we have Han, let's click the cultures map mode, will become, it's not even primary Han, they're actually just all converting, but we do have some Han communities, like, let's say here, which you can see barely less than the amount of Yankee they've been being converted, but every place where we form Han communities has just, like, given us an enormous amount of peasants, although I guess we've done an okay job getting rid of them here in Minnesota, but this is that's a really tall paper mill. I guess it's fine, but you can see here we're doing the sulfur types of stuff with the sulfur and iron state, so it makes a lot of sense. this is kind of what we're doing now. These guys can't employ? No, okay, they can't employ. But just wanted to make that note that West Virginia is, like, I think the best example of a state where you kind of try and help it along its way with the Greener Grass campaign in order to, like, get things going. And then once things are going, you know, once the SOL is not being determined by just railways, because that's the only thing that's employed in the area, then it can help to carry itself with, you know, the stuff that will really promote the annual wage of 15 here instead of the annual wage here of 10 will help to promote, you know, a much higher SOL, which will allow it to kind of carry itself instead of death spiraling. We just increased our health system to level 5, which is going to be super, super nice for us. You know, let's take a look at what exactly all it gives us. That's public schools, not public health. But public health insurance is now giving us a 2.5 standard living, 75% pollution effects reduction, and minus 20% mortality. Really hoping to kind of make this line a little bit more vertical just by increasing SOL, as well as, you know, or decreasing mortality mostly. But if we take a look inside the city here, we can see the pollution impact is 100%, but now it's even more mitigated than it used to be. The effects unmitigated are going to be 50% mortality, or here, unmitigated 50% mortality, minus 3 standard living, and minus 10% migration attraction, with them being mitigated. Wait. They should be mitigated. What the hell? Okay, it's being mitigated, further reduced by minus 85%, 75% from our public health, and minus 10% from sewage. And so, you know, this means that the penalties you are incurring before you get the final level are effectively cut in half by that final level, because you'll be at minus 70%, you know, on level 4 health insurance. And so this will mean you'll be getting 30% of the penalty, and then this last 15% brings it down to 15%. And so it's kind of a big one. Normally, we don't really rush this type of thing in terms of the tech, but we did it this time. Also, I think we explained this last episode, but we're going for plastics into compression ignition. Really don't have good sinks for oil at this point in the game. We have a good chunk of oil playing as America, and so this will be pretty good for us. A compression ignition probably being one of the best techs in the game. And if we look at our prices in our market, we've started to import ores. So we are starting to reach late game economy, which we haven't really played too many like hyper late game economies where you actually run out of resources since like 1.4 even, and this is starting to become the limiting factor for us. The fact that lead, iron, sulfur, and coal are so expensive, and the places we can build it in really don't have the workers available to make use of it. I guess Mendoza does, but like for the most part, it's not. We don't have workers available to make use of the resources that we would like to be able to build, either by not having enough workers or not having enough qualifications, or both. And so you can see here we just have these 9 levels we can build out, and then there's like not enough workers for any levels here. We do have Mendoza here, but other than the stuff we just kind of got very recently, it's a little bit rough to find people to work in these various mines, which are normally so profitable. And so we're kind of reaching this point, and this is why we have put in some trade routes importing this stuff. We do have incoming 2K, which isn't the most, but, you know, it is what it is. And so we have switched from exporting these things to boost these industries because we have companies for it in a comparative advantage, to starting to now switch to importing them. Alright, our Colonial Affairs passing is just kind of really not going anywhere, or no Colonial Affairs, with the idea that we wanted to go no Colonial Affairs into colonial resettlement. So I think what we're going to do is I think we're going to go communist at this point. We don't have someone who's non-communist because we can't make Carnegie in government in a way that is legitimate. If you see here, this is probably the most legitimate we could do here. I guess Carnegie would be ruler here. Why is he ruler instead of... It's been a bit of a battle between Theodore and Carnegie, but we're just going to do this, because as long as we can harvest the literary trait, so I take it back, we're not going communist. Sorry for all of those who were excited about that. As long as we can maintain literary on one of our leaders, we're just going to do that over going communist. But the idea behind going communist is I think we don't really mind if people leave our customs union. that much anymore, because they'll almost certainly collapse, and then we can just yo-yo sway them. And so it's really not that big a deal, because almost everyone's economy, or actually just about everyone's economy, is super intertwined with ours. And so if they like embargo us or leave our market or do these sorts of things, then we'll be just kind of fine overall with them. Maybe we should be improving relations with these guys. I think we were improving relations with, we were improving relations over here. We're going to stop, and we're going to start bankrolling instead. We don't really care about the money at this point. We care about how much Diplo it costs us. And so this is why we're switching to that, because we have just an obscene amount of money, and we're trying to expand the customs union still as best we can. Once we get an obligation, we'll be able to pull in Korea. That'll be nice. That'll be really nice, considering Korea does have no migration controls, so we actually will be able to siphon off pops directly from them, and they are one of the highest pop countries in the game remaining, with a population of 20 million, which is really good for the loud car outside. If we take a look, here, we could sort by population, and where's Korea? Korea's down here, around 20 million, but that would be quite nice for us. So I think we'll make this, we'll sit here for now in this lower infamy zone, but we will be kind of looking for a spot to go communist if it presents itself, if Carnegie dies, basically. So here's what happened to the oil price the second we turned on Glassworks, giving 37,000 more buy orders. Now this is altogether too much, and so we'll have to figure out a strategy for raking back our consumption of oil, at least in the Glassworks. Now, I think a lot of these oil rigs are also not fully employed, so this is maybe not something we need to attend to too carefully, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a look, and we're going to look for places that are on focused glasswork production, and for those places, we're going to swap them back to crystal glass. That way, we don't, and these are the places that have the absolute most, the biggest size, so in terms of clicking, this is less clicking for us, but also these places are more likely to be fully saturated with a minus 75 local price influence towards glass, and so they will benefit a little bit less, just slightly less, from having really, really cheap glass. And so I think we're going to swap everything on over there. I don't know why put soy is on like that, but we're going to do this, and this should fix up the buy orders as they stand. Even if the full employment will actually fix up the orders so that we're not running a shortage and it moves down to plus 45, we still need to have some oil available for turning on the very, very, very strong compression ignition tech, and so this will, kind of localize. It will equalize in just a sec. We're getting Niger off of France for nothing. Now they are a, still a major power. We need to decay them to a minor if we want to be able to reverse sway them into being a subject, and so that is something that is a bit unfortunate. I don't think we could have asked for a bankroll. They're in our customs union, but we will be getting Niger, which will give us an area that we can continue auto-expanding, and then for tech, of course, we are swapping onto compression ignition after this. Maybe we go over to the Miltex. Not really sure exactly what we need, but I think that, well, we could do mechanized farming to increase SOL by just tanking the price of grain. If we take a look here, these guys, their major consumption is still grain, and so this is something that is maybe worth considering just for the purposes of growing the pops as much as possible. We do have an average SOL of 21, but these middling pops can still grow a little bit faster, or sorry, these lower strata pops can still grow a little bit faster as we get them to approach 20, but that's when you have the absolute most pop growth, and I think at 30 is when you achieve the maximal your pop growth will go down and down, your net pop growth will go down and down until I think it's 30, at which point it reaches a stable equilibrium. So that's kind of some of the stuff that we're focused on. But yeah, it's chugging real slow now. So we are at a point where I think we're actually going to roll back construction in order to pay for a tax cut that we made. We have basically de-peasanted our country. There's only 2.4 million peasants, 137 million gainfully employed. So we're basically out of peasants. So we're going to make a couple adjustments. One, we're not going to quite need this much construction. We're not going to wind down a lot, but what we're going to do is we're going to come into the the tab for construction, and we are going to sort by which has the most expensive upkeep, and in these areas we're just going to kind of pull down construction a little bit and you know, just look for a little and look to pull it down to about 11K. So not looking to make an absolutely huge reduction. The reason being is we don't want to disrupt the economy too much of any place, or our overall economy, which is largely, you know, kind of funded by construction goods. And so we don't want to, you know, if we delete way too much construction, then it'll collapse the prices of all of these things. And we don't want to do that. So that's why we're just going to reduce just a little bit, and then let things adjust, and then make a decision on whether or not to reduce. Well, we shouldn't have reduced there. Make a decision on whether or not to reduce after this. And so this is going to be the kind of the first adjustment we make. But also, we have reduced taxes, and we are going to, you know, start getting even more migration or pop growth, because this middling will come up to 20. Now, if this middling starts getting to 20, over 20, or the lower strata average starts to be over 20, we might increase taxes just to lower their SOL specifically, but we won't have to do that quite yet. And then the second move we're going to make is we're going to come into, you know, kind of these things, and we are going to turn on more labor-saving PMs in various places. We are going to turn on kind of the best labor-saving PMs that we have available. We're going to do this one, and then into this one. That way it captures everything, and we will make sure everything's on at least water tube boiler. This is not necessarily like best practice, because, or actually we're not going to touch the steel, whatever decisions we made with the steel, but everything we're planning on moving on up, we will move up a little bit. I don't know if we want ammo to be expensive. That'll probably make ammo more expensive. That one's fine. But tools and furniture, if I recall correctly, have the more efficient of the rotary valve PMs. And so we're going to do first, this is going to cost 5 coal, reduce 500 labor, versus, you know, this is going to cost 5 coal, reduce 500 labor. And then I think that the other ones, like let's say in steel, for example, this is 5 coal. Are they really all 5 coal, 500 labor, or the marginal kind of cost here? Okay, fair enough. Well, we're gonna put it on tools first. And we're going to go here, and we are going to do that, which is going to create a whole bunch of unemployed pops, but that's okay. They'll find jobs, especially because we are basically run out of pops now. So we're making these adjustments. Slight reduction in construction. Construction's not as useful when you're out of peasants. Reduction of taxes, and turning on more and more labor-saving PMs as we can. Let's just turn this up too. And this is going to really crank up the price of coal, in particular, because these are all taking more coal, so we'll expect to see a much more expensive coal price than we had previously, or slightly more expensive. And so we'll see if we can do any profitable routes. No, we can't. But this is going to be, we're going to continue to push in more and more labor-saving PMs. You can see now there's 1.2 million unemployed, and we will specifically, when looking for construction, we're going to try and find where specifically these guys are unemployed. Not using something like that, but we're going to be taking a look here. Hey, where did people get fired? It's a lot of these Chinese provinces, a lot of this type of stuff, and we'll keep an eye on this, and if they don't find other jobs available there, we'll focus construction in these places in order to kind of bring things up. We just nat spread elevators, and so what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to turn on arcades everywhere, but second of all, this gives us plus construction sector max level. What I think we're going to do is we're going to delete down more construction sectors and then rebuild them specifically in areas where we're constructing a lot. So this is going to mean adding 5 in places like the capital, as well as in, or we could just add them in initially, and then all of the Chinese states we are generally building more in than anywhere else, and so these 5 places we will upgrade to level 30 in the construction sector, and also Texas and California. And so we're going to add 30 construction sectors, and then we're going to look to wind down construction sectors in areas where we don't have too much labor or this type of thing, because this will allow us to, you know, free up labor in areas that doesn't have a lot of labor. and then kind of offset that into areas that do have a lot of labor, so we'll make that adjustment there. We will continue to wind down, you know, kind of more and more PMs. As you can see here, we've kind of returned to an equilibrium where we have a similar number, or well, we have more unemployment, we have a similar number of peasants as we did before, and now we have a little bit more gainfully employed, and so this means we can keep turning on PMs. However, eventually we will be gated, or turning on labor-saving PMs. Eventually we're going to get gated by the fact that we will start to make coal prohibitively expensive. And there's not a solution to this other than importing coal or somehow having more coal, which is what we'll try and do. But this is like we're starting to reach the point that we haven't reached in a long time, which is we are starting to get squeezed on the resources. The resource prices are creeping up, and this eventually is a very significant inhibition on our ability to kind of economically progress. We are also going to look to make significant cuts in our universities. We really don't need a very high-level university because we are, you know, plus 1K uncapped. The universities we have primarily been building for qualifications. We're not really NAT spreading stuff too effectively, although we are NAT spreading the occasional thing. And so what we're going to do is, in areas where we do not have any peasants and we have a lot of unis, we're just going to look to downgrade this a little bit, because the, you know, the extreme qualifications, especially now that a lot of these places have become incorporated, are not going to be quite as important. Mongolia is not incorporated yet, so we will not increase this, and we will just kind of go down the line. Are these our highest level universities? I guess they are. Man, why do we have so much innovation? That's wild as hell. But we're going to, I guess, take another look here, and we're going to see Beijing. We're going to look to slowly kind of peel down some of these on Beijing as well, down to kind of a much more manageable level. Now, Shaanxi, not yet incorporated, so I guess it's maybe Fujian and Shaanxi, or Fujian and Beijing, we will just absolutely tank down to 11 university levels, which of course is going to create a bunch of unemployment, but these guys have plenty of jobs with which to go to. We have overbuilt a lot of these industries a huge amount, and they also can go into the subsistence farms. We will see that a lot of these pops are leaving. We now have 250k unemployed, but if we take a close look, they should be able to, if I'm not mistaken, have enough kind of, is this Beijing? Unused arable land. There's about 250k, so they could switch to being peasants if they really wanted to. Big nice to that. Or maybe we should expand out all the arable land, or the rest of the arable land, instead of giving them peasant jobs. You know, the silk plantations are very, very nice, and we would like to get a bit better of a better economy of scale on here, so why don't we just do this, which of course makes it so they can't become peasants, but they can work in stuff like the furniture manufactories, the textile mills soon. There will be a little bit more available employment. Also, they can move to the motor industries, these sorts of things, and in doing that, we kind of will reduce our overall deficit a little bit. We're trying to rein this in before it becomes too big of a problem, and instead, and to some extent, we are having with our SOL and wages increasing on average, we are increasing the cost of like all the government wages with this sort of thing, and so we're looking to reduce, and the construction is going to be a little bit more useful than the universities because we have way overbuilt. But now we have a bit more of a reasonable natural spread, and our overflow, instead of being 1k uncapped, it's now 750 uncapped, so maybe this is a bit more modest. I've been getting questions a lot in the comments about how the yo-yo sway works. We've been doing it this entire run, but just to reiterate, there has to be exactly one diplomatic play available. There was another diplomatic play, we just came in, we declared neutrality, so that the only play here would be this Austria and Saxe, wherever this place is. Also, you have to not be in a war. We are currently not in a war, and only then will you be able to swap sides and then swap back. The reason being, the way the game thinks about it, it's thinking that you're siding against yourself, because when you are already supporting the Saxon proletariat revolt, and you try and side with Austria, in the game's logic, it will be saying, hey, you're siding against yourself, you are allied with yourself in a play, or you are allied with yourself in a war. You can't do that, and it won't let you swap, and this is the reason why this swap is not going to work. You can see here we can ask for transfer subjects, we can't ask for transfer states, we can ask for an obligation, but if we yo-yo sway, Now we can ask for a whole lot, and we see that we can actually get states off of Austria here for free, in addition to war goals, make protectorate, which is kind of an amusing one. But we are going to ask for transfer states, and we are going to look and try and find the very juiciest thing we can find. Now, South Tyrol, if I recall, does have gold, but we're probably going to look for something that has a bit of a bit more resources, or is a bit more resource dense, and so we'll figure something out. I don't know exactly what we want to take yet, so otherwise we would just show it, but we'll take a look at all of our options. So we decided to go for Northern Transylvania, as it has an absolute ton of resources that are currently not being used by the AI. AI is really bad about this, really excited and looking forward to being able to build in other countries, because we would be able to build in all of Austria, build in all of Prussia, build in Great Britain, and solve our resource problem quite a bit. You know, we haven't been like swinging it out here. We haven't been doing the high infamy play for the most part. We're a little bit high right now, and this is how you really get a lot of resources. We're not like trying to do a world conquest, and so it will be really nice when we can build in other people's countries in 1.7, but for now we will just transfer Northern Transylvania to us, and when the war breaks out we will get it for freezies, good dealsies, and then we will be able to you know, put a lot of stuff down there. I'm pretty sure we also do not get any of the radicals or whatever, and so this is going to be great for us. Austria now sided with us. It's our war. Big nice. And no Colonial Affairs is dead in the cradle, it looks like. Okay, well that is what it is. I don't think we even really care about this place, so we might even just capitulate out. I don't even think... Can we not even get... I don't even think we could get anyone to this play, so we might just have to give up here. Yeah, looks like we can't send anyone there, and if they have one troop and Saxon Proletarian Revolt has none, it looks like we'll just lose that anyways, but they will give us this before we capitulate, and then we'll just integrate it and build a bunch of resources there. So we are pushing up the navy size a little bit. We probably should have been doing this a little bit more aggressively. We just have everything in nice neat numbers of like 20 stacks, and now we're bringing these 20 stacks up to 25 stacks and this type of thing, but we should have just, you know, cruised all of these guys up to the much higher levels, because what we have here is the Ottomans, for example here. These guys are a major power, so we can't yo-yo sway, and by the way, the reason why they're terrified of us in the yo-yo sways is because we have this, but it's because we have this. Just to be clear, this is the threat. The threat is the 5,000 conscript army. And so what we can do here is we can't get an obligation here, but if we side here and then yo-yo over to this other side, now we can transfer stuff. And we're going to take a look through all this stuff, and we're going to look for whatever gives us the best resources. We know that some of these will have a decent chunk of oil in them, and this is really, or not oil, well actually oil, yeah, oil down here in Basara, Baghdad, and Mosul. So actually we'll look specifically in Basara, Baghdad, and Mosul if any of these can be moved over to our side. Baghdad cannot, it looks like. Basara can, and Mosul can. So between Basara and Mosul, I think Mosul is going to be the best, but Basara has coastal access, and the Ottomans are in our market now, but they might not be in our market, so maybe Basara is a little bit more conservative as a choice, and so we could just sway, and we could just take Basara. Ask for transfer states, ask for Basara, much in the same way we just did, like literally just did with Austria here. We will get Basara for free. I mean, is there a better choice here? Bosnia's got some resources we know of. I think that the one we really need is coal, and we could try and put in for coal. Hudvigar. Oh, I thought Hudvigar has a lot of coal. Oyedin has a lot of coal. I think that this place has coal, but it's Adana, it's in Egypt. Kind of awkward. But I think we'll just go for Basara, because Basara has both a ton of oil and a bunch of sulfur, so this will be pretty good for us, and we'll just get it for free. For freezies, good dealsies. This is how it rolls, because in the Ottomans' head, they have 5,600 battalions against them, and we're offering to support them with a really big force that would really turn the tide in this war. So from their perspective, this is what they want, and this is what they'll go for, and it'll be nice for us, because we'll get Basara for free. We did get concrete dockyards NAT spread to us, which is a bit of godsend because we are starting to have trouble. We might even turn on modern ports. I kind of don't think so, but our max port level increase is going to be really nice because one of the downsides of what we're doing, you know, building a ton of stuff in the Chinese provinces where we have a ton of labor, rather than relying on migration to siphon these guys out, is that this really, really, really significantly negatively affects you know, port connection costs, because these port connection costs are huge, and so getting these down is going to help. We also have port connection costs, you know, throughout the entire world because we're supplying the world with everything, but we can't build ports throughout the rest of the world. Like, for example, we can't build ports all throughout Great Britain, and I don't know to what extent they are supplying our convoys. If we take a look here, we could look at a bunch of, you know, sources of convoys that are going to be like all of our sources, but this is like, okay, we could hover through 1 million tooltips. Just kidding. No, we can do it. We can do it, except we kind of can't. Eventually we're going to be getting some convoys from other countries. I'm not sure to what extent they are using, you know, the better PMs on their ports, or if they're just like reducing them to anchorages. It looks like they're using something reasonable. But this is going to... We don't want to be having reduced supply network because we don't want like all these overseas provinces to have you know, negative market access, which is kind of what we're facing if we can't manage to pull the ports up a little bit. It would also help if we got Mexico into the customs union and actually connected North and South America, because then we wouldn't have to run convoys between the two, and so we might just have to engage in hostilities against Mexico and just like make them a protectorate, which is going to be the end of our low infamy days if we do this. So we get a little bit unlucky here. I was not aware that this is how this interaction worked. France is in our customs union. France declared war on the East Indies. East Indies was our subject, and we didn't defend the East Indies because we're just like, okay, they'll just fight amongst themselves. And then now East Indies breaks free, and now they're not part of our customs union, which is a bit unfortunate. I think they're going to get an event that might split them apart. We're not going to reload for this, even though I wasn't aware that this is how this interaction would work, where if we failed to defend the East Indies, they would break free. To be honest, they have migration controls, and we weren't really siphoning off any pops from them anyways, although we were enjoying having them in our customs union, both for consuming our goods as well as providing us kind of with the lower tier agricultural stuff. But I think we'd rather, if we have to choose, I think we'd actually rather have the France in our customs union, where we have been slowly draining them of their pops. We've been draining Great Britain of their pops as well over time, you can see here. And so this is going to be pretty nice for us in a general sense. But I think we're going to conclude this episode here. You know, we're just shy of 400 million. But we'll just say we're just shy of 400 million for the end of this episode. Filipino mass migration at the very end here. I guess in theory we should have sided with France in exchange for something. If we had to break up, we decided not to side with either side because we wanted to keep both, but I guess we can't do that. But we should have sided with France in exchange for a state. Yo-Yo swayed for that. But this episode, we started to encounter the late game. We've swapped to using pretty much every labor-saving PM available in the industries. You can see almost all of these are on the rotary valve engine, and we are still having only 3 million peasants and 1 million unemployed, and nearly 140 million gainfully employed. And we could see the kind of last squeezing outs of the SOL. We see the lower strata is approaching 20, so we might increase taxes just a little bit, which would kind of stabilize us anyways. We did delete some construction down because we saw that this was coming. This is something you want to do ahead of time. I don't talk about it too much when I'm doing it, but maybe I should talk about it a little bit more. But you kind of get a feel for just how much you can handle. And the thing is if you're not depeasanting, construction is less valuable anyways. But if you're depeasanting, it's really valuable and you can like pedal to the metal. But we're not quite really in that phase of the game anymore. And so we've been trying to handle these things. Still have a ton of loyalists and this type of stuff. But maybe it's actually going to end up being 2 more episodes. We could just like attack China and take 5 provinces and then call it a day, because this would bring us up to half a billion pops. But I think we're trying to do it mainly through mass migration. We don't have too many huge bump ups. These are largely the four bumps you see are the 4 Chinese provinces we took, and so I don't think we want to take any more. I think we want to kind of make use of what we've got and try and expand that way. I guess we might annex like more of the Americas and or maybe Great Britain and Germany, stuff like this. But other than that, we're going to look to kind of pull through migration, to finish out this run. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing, and have a good day.